Millions of Americans look after a disabled service member or care for someone in the family of a fallen service member. My next guest wants to help those taking care of our nation's heroes. His organization, you probably are familiar with if you watch Fox, Folds of Honor, has awarded nearly 35,000 scholarships to the spouses and children of America's fallen and disabled vets, totaling more than $160 million in educational aid. The CEO and founder of Folds of Honor, Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney, who, by the way, is active again as a fighter pilot, is with us now. So if I don't catch you on the golf course, if I don't see Folds of Honor on a NASCAR, I could look up in the sky, and if I see a fighter jet, you might be flying it, right, Dan?
Yeah, it all goes back for me. When I was 12 years old, I met my first fighter pilot, and it was my first man crush, moment of synchronicity or chance with a purpose. And I'm now in the recruiting command for the United States Air Force and Space Force, and in this kind of honeymoon of my career, trying to pay that forward. And as we look to Memorial Day and celebrate the fact that there's a 0.5% of this country that wakes up every day, willing to sacrifice for our freedoms. And without the Air Force in my life, Brian, none of this is ever possible. And they've just been such a blessing to me, and to get to pay that gift forward for the young men and women who are the next generation of the Air Force and Space Force, it's great. And obviously our work at Folds goes hand in hand with taking care of these families.
And a lot of times when tragedy hits or something hit you, and we know the story of you looking out and seeing a casket being taken off a passenger jet, a commercial jet, and you saw people weren't really paying attention and said, this is not right. And you've launched this foundation because of it. And it's as big and important as any in the country. There are a lot of things that happen. I found out that even though between 1% and 2% of the country serve in the military, 40% of those who serve are legacy. Families that serve. So the same families keep on serving, 4 out of every 10 that you see in uniform. I was stunned by that stat. But I think one thing that brings it home, Dan, not only are you the face, like Frank is the face of Tunnels to Towers, you're the face of Folds of Honor. It's the faces you highlight. For example, Lisa Hallett, she suffered a tragedy. And how has she helped others through that tragedy while helping herself?
Yeah, we know that there's a 0.5% of this country that wakes up willing to live that scripture, John 15:13. No greater sacrifice than to lay down one's life for one's friends. And when that happens, Folds is blessed to be in a position not just to say, I'm sorry or thank you for your service, but come around and take care of those families, giving them the gift of an education. And I'm the father of 5 daughters, which you can see looking at me. But my greatest fear, if anything happens to me, is that they would be taken care of, specifically getting an education. And that's where Folds of Honor steps in. And that gift of an education is the force multiplier that really separates this country from other countries.
So Lisa Hallett is executive director and co-founder of Wear Blue, Run to Remember, and this was spurred by the death of her husband, John Hallett, who was killed on his Stryker, was attacked with an IED in southern Afghanistan. And because of that and that tragedy that hit her, she spurred into action. So many times, the best way to get over your grief is to take action to help others. Is this an example of that?
Yeah, and these military spouses are heroic, right? And they just need a hand up, not a handout. And Lisa is a perfect example of just how special these spouses are. And people don't realize, when I raised my right hand and joined the United States Air Force, my family goes along for the ride. And to be able to empower Lisa and her 3 kids is just such a gift. And we can all step up, especially on this Memorial Day holiday, and remember, as Frank said, freedom is not free. And do something meaningful to say thank you for your freedoms by taking care of these families.
And also going to Folds of Honor and knowing the money's going to go to the right place. So because you're never going to be able to replace the spouse or the father or mother in that family, you got to do the best you can to make sure that family goes on and gets the education if that's the direction they want to go. Thanks so much, Dan. Always appreciate it. Now you're recruiting for the Space Force and the Air Force, competing in a job market that everybody wants to hire, and we're having trouble hiring. The military is no exception to that, but you're the best salesperson there is because it comes from the heart. Dan, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, God bless, and have a blessed Memorial Day, Brian.
Back at you. Thanks for the time, and thanks for sharing your story with our audience.